Folks, hello and welcome to Dungeons, Dragons, and Discourse. I am your host, Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR. With me, as always, every other Friday, is none other than Joe the Lawyer with his horrible History Channel uh,
I love the
haircut.
avatar. I forgot to look to see how to change the goddamn thing. I think I have to log out and change it to something. But yeah, we'll stick with the maniac. And Eric, if you had a drink before the game, this is Iron Rations. You called it the wrong thing, man. I just noticed that.
Oh my God. Oh, you're right. You're right. Holy crap! I got the wrong banner up.
Unless you're trying to cross brand or something going on.
Well, it's still with cross branding anyway. But here we go. Iron Rat.
There you go.
I'll lose my. Well, here we'll make it even better. Now, earlier tonight, I announced that our guest was going to be Greg Christopher. Well, playing the role of Greg Christopher is none other than Rob Conley. Now,
this wasn't a bait and switch.
Bait and switch, but it's a good bait and switch because you got Mr. Bat in the attic. You got the man who has made, I guess, the Wilderlands still relevant in this era. Black Mark, the sandbox that I came back to gaming as a GM with.
Tried to kill me with, motherfucker.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you were right.
That was fun. That was fun, man. I had a blast. Like I was like, where's this come from? Where'd you get this? This is awesome. This is awesome. It's a perfect little setting. It was great, man.
So, Rob, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, Rob.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
And just so you know, Greg was going to be the guest. Gothridge Matters says, I'm out. I thought Greg was going to be the guest. Yeah, Tim, yeah, he was. But as you know, we were in a group chat, and Craig, we're all set to do it. And then Rob says, hey, he started talking and stuff. All right, we'll have Rob and Greg both on. And then Greg had to bow out for stuff. So it wasn't we weren't trying to lie to you guys.
and Tim is just busting balls anyway. He does that very well.
Oh, yeah, because he's known Rob since how old, Rob? 13, 15, something like that, whatever it's been.
I was 17, I believe, when I met. No, actually, I met Dwayne before Tim, and I don't think Tim and I really hung out until after I started going to college. Because Tim was into football for a long time until he got injured, and then that's when we hooked up.
Yeah. It was a groin injury, wasn't it? It was like a hard smack to the nuts, and nothing ever. That's why the high voice. When you have, he has the high voice when he does his interview.
Nothing
ever sounded painful when he described it to me.
It's why you got to wear a jock, right? It's like I got to wear the cup and the jock. It's optional. I don't need that in football. Please, no, man, no.
Yeah, I played football too, and I pulled my groin a couple times.
Oh, did you really? I was just joking. I don't think he actually hurt his groin. I think it was a knee thing, but you actually did. Jesus Christ!
Please show us on the PC where footballer Tim touched you.
God no! Oh God no! We started.
I got a weird ass pinky because of football, and that would freak you out if I had video going on.
Oh, maybe not.
Let's just say I can bend it 90 degrees sideways.
Holy shit. Might help you be a better typer, though, sometimes,
I can bend it with my hand sideways. I can't control it sideways. No, it's because I was a defensive lineman, and and when I was a sophomore and a junior, I forget to ask for J pads, which you wear over your hand. And so by a month in, I realized my pinky was permanently bent outward.
Oh, God.
And then, so I started wearing J pads, and I forgot my junior year, which I corrected a few weeks in. And my senior year, I made sure I had J pads, and I stick two of my fingers into one ring, and that prevented it from getting worse. But the damage was already done.
It's rough. That shit gets worse and worse as you get older too. Stuff I heard when I was a teenager. I'm like, that's back. What the hell? My brother's like, he just texted me because you're already talking about groins. All right, let's talk about D&D.
Let's talk about the. Oh, actually, before we dive into the D&D stuff, since Ty is here, I don't know how long Ty will last through this cast. Ty, you'll be interested in knowing that the lawyers for the board of directors at Servtronics reached out to me trying to get more information on this whole bag of poop regarding Turbo and Gary Khan. Needless to say, I didn't really have all that much to say other than my one experience with Turbo is he was giving free knives. So I mean, hey, if it's free, it's for me. Never got it.
You're like the old school private detective of the OSR, basically. You can be the bartender plus the PI, the OSR.
A little bit, you gotta. You don't lose your old occupation just because you retired, and thanks to people like Tavis Allison, who was nice enough the night before a hurricane to toss a bag of flaming poop in my lap with Joe as a witness.
Yeah.
And then the hurricane hit, and I forgot about it for like, I don't know, a year. And then I was like, oh, let me look into this Gygax Memorial Fund. Holy sh! And then it became what it was. So, in any case, you're right, Joe. Let's sit back and relax. Get on with the show.
Yeah. Well, what we were talking about, that all started this thing with Greg. He says, I'll just summarize some of the texts. We had a group chat text that's going on with us, and Eric's on it, Rob's on it, Tim, Matt, and so he says something like, when he finishes his big setting that he's gonna make eventually, he says, is it worth my time to make a 5e version? That was this afternoon, and as I said, yeah, go where the money is. Look at Baramaze, the 5e version and OSR version. All the Troll Lord stuff is both, Castles and Crusades and 5e. A lot of the Frog God stuff is. I said, you might as well have the 5th edition people support your OSR publishing business and laugh all the way to the bank. And I think then you chimed in pretty much on that one, Eric. And you
listen, I've had, I don't want to say an inside view, but I've had a good view, at least with the Frog God releases. I've watched the Indiegogo projects, like what the share is between Swords and Wizardry, Pathfinder, and 5e. And
that's
5e,
right. They do modules of both editions. You have a choice.
Yeah. So 5e drives the hobby. I mean, it is the engine that keeps it going. It's not a guarantee because, like I mentioned earlier, and this is, I think that the Middleland is one of the best RPG setting releases ever. I think Glenn Seal did an amazing job on that. Frog God was going to publish a 5e version. They did. And it was getting kickstarted, but it got kickstarted at the beginning of the pandemic, if my memory is correct, which was just bad timing. So the 5e version didn't do as well as it potentially could have. But 5e, again, it allows these publishers to publish what they want. Troll Lords, let's be honest, they want to publish C&C. Castles Crusades, the home system.
Yeah, it's their baby.
Frog God Games, their home system is Swords and Wizardry. They want to support that. But if you want to make this into a business that these companies that can support actually paying people to do their work, you got to find the 5e market because that will keep you going. And why not? If you've already written the material for Swords and Wizardry or Labyrinth Lord or one of the other OSR systems, why not capture some of the 5e monies while you're at it? You've done the bulk of the work, although I am going to admit that I am not a person that's skilled at converting anything from simple to hard. I just take things like from 5e and DCC. I can make this simple. I did Swords and Wizardry Light. Simple is my middle name. To up-ramp it, to go from a Swords and Wizardry system to 5e is a lot harder road to walk, and that's part of the discussion we've been having with Rob.
And that's what Rob chimed in the group chat too. And Rob, go. So talk about what your thoughts are about the whole thing, Rob.
Well, with 5e, the good news is I find them pretty much equivalent in terms of world building. In other words, if I have a bunch of characters that are 4th level in my Majestic Fantasy rules, i.e. a variant of Swords and Wizardry, I find I can also have a bunch of 4th level characters in 5e, and it will roughly, and when the party runs into those 4th level characters, it's roughly the same outcome. Now, monsters are a little bit different, but they're not that far off. So over time, refereeing people up as high as 12th level, I found that the power curve between the two to be equivalent. So to make a 5e version of an adventure is pretty much you take the 5e stat block of the creature that you have and drop it in there. And the same with the stat blocks of the if you have a leveled character as part of the adventure, you will find that a 7th level fighter will fight like a 7th level fighter against the same number of orcs and so forth and so on.
I think the biggest thing though, Rob, would be the layout. What we were talking about, a little bit in terms of not so much a conversion of easy to hard or hard to easy, but you were talking about in terms of a functional layout. What do you do? How do you do it? And what's preferred, right?
Well, the 5e standard is to write about what your encounter or whatever, and bold everything that has a stat block and put your stat block at the end of the book.
Yeah.
In a few cases, they'll put an inline stat block, probably because they had nothing else to stick on that page. So why not put the stat block for one of the stat blocks for the encounter?
Which goes against the old school aesthetic that I guess I still look at. I was saying before, Temple of Elemental Evils being the basic thing that I start from, right? You have the DM text to read out loud, and then while the players are digesting that, the DM is reading the couple little paragraphs underneath about the other shit in the room. And then once you've gotten that and they've read your stat, your little blurb, you're looking at the stat block of the 3 ghouls that are down there described below. And that's sort of been my gold standard, is that what I look for. And maybe because I'm just used to seeing it like that, that's kind of what I did. But you were talking about a separate book, right?
Yeah, a separate PDF basically, or and a separate appendix at least if I wanted to keep it one book. Depends how the logistics of it work out. But actually, the read out loud text and the stat block in line with the room description.
Yeah,
that's not old school. That's second generation.
Old school. Yeah, that's what I was.
Second generation stuff.
That
old
was me.
School didn't do that. At best, with real old school, you have AC5, HD2, and that's it, and maybe a hit point. I mean, that's the judges' skill. If you look at the judges' skill stuff, it's littered with that. And if you look at the oldest modules, like the Giant series, and
very different.
And if you look at the Keep on the Borderland, they have one line at most for anything, and then the full stat block is in the back. So I don't know. I mean, with my own adventure, I did a mix of both. So basically, if it wasn't a common character, I put the stat block in line with the text. And at most, I had, like I'm looking at a page here on page 19 of my Skirt of the Demon Wolf, and Yulov the Fur Trapper is a 3rd level fighter, and it's like 6 lines of text. So it kind of works in there nicely.
Yeah.
But if I do a 5e version of that, that would be 4 times the size.
Yeah, that's the difference, right? I mean, it changes your entire layout. You're not just substituting one for the other. I mean, there's all the old school guys. We could change it, like Eric is saying, right? We change it up, we modify it on the fly, we make it work. It's not that hard, right? Especially when you're going down from new to old.
Right.
Up is a whatever, but it's just a matter of if it's a matter of the aesthetic or a matter of fitting it in or a matter of functionality. Like I remember the old Freeport thing that Green Ronin put out. I still don't know how to pronounce it. Is there a Green Ronin or Green Ronin? I'm not sure, but I don't even know. But they put out that Freeport thing. I thought was a fantastic, fluff book. A great thick book. And then they had a separate book for the D20 rule stats for everybody, and then a separate book for a different one. So they, no matter what system, you can use it like system generic, because you buy the Freeport book and then you buy a separate book of all the stat blocks of all the PCs or whoever you have, their NPCs rather you're dealing with. And I never liked that approach. I would rather have had a thicker book with that in there. just because I like to see it all in one place. I don't want two books in front of me, you know.
Well, what's the thickest book you ever? What is the thickest adventure or book that had the read aloud of text, the stat book, and then the description of the room?
I mean, the thickest ones are the Temple books, like the A1 through 4 series, the Temple books, the GDQ, all those combo books that they put out. Like you started D&D earlier than me. I was 84. I think, Eric, you were earlier than me too, right?
I was like 1980 or so. Yeah, I was right. I guess right after the DMG got published, I was in.
Yeah,
those
so
combo books weren't that thick. They were like
128 pages. That's all.
Yeah, they were like 128 pages.
Yeah,
right. That was only T1 to 4, really, because the rest of them, they didn't like pack A1 to 4 together until much like even the G series. G1 to 3 is when I came in, so it was after the individual, but before they put it into the GDQ 1 through 3, 1 through 3, 1 or 1 through 7, whatever the hell it was. Yeah.
Well, I submit that read out loud a text, room description, and stat block that doesn't scale beyond a certain point. I think if you get up to the 128 page mark, you start to get overwhelmed if it's anything beyond that. I mean, I remember picking up Castle Right Walk from from Goodman Games.
Yeah,
and it just after a point it became too hard to follow.
That's in a world all its own, that one.
Because here you are, you're trying to get a sense of how an area is, but you're constantly interrupted with room descriptions, and then read it aloud, room description, and stat block. 3 different pieces of information. And personally, I think room descriptions are for the bird. What I rather do,
fighting words here.
What I rather do is have a descriptive name for the room, highlight important features, and leave it up to you to fully describe the room. Give you enough to so that knowing my expected audience, I hope to give them enough so they can do a full description on their own. And if I can, I would also have employed the map in service of the description, just like old Judges Guild Tego Manor had, like written on the hallway. You hear creaking noise, or in a room you say bedroom, and it would say rat sounds in one corner, and then so that it needed work, but I think overall with a little bit more work, that format can scale to cover really large areas.
Right, and you can do that with less words. Now, Joe can tell you what happened when I ran Dwimmermount with room descriptions that were 7 giant rats and 2,000 copper pieces. Well, if these 7 rats are stuck in this room with no other way out, there's going to be a lot of rat feces, a lot of rat shit. And I threw in the rat shit, which was not in the description, but that was the GM embellishing and filling it in, which I think was the final nail in the coffin for our play test of those rules, because the room descriptions were verbose where they did not need to be verbose, and they were very stark when you needed more description. So I think Rob is trying to talk about getting the balance right, and I do think that there were times in the earlier adventures or modules where it's like, oh my god, there's like literally a column and a half of read aloud text.
Yeah, that was insane. There's a point where it just becomes stupid.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm looking now at the biggest module, whatever we want to call it. At first, just as a little quick aside, it's interesting how still to this day, what we first started with becomes the thing that we bond with in a way. and that we all like what we came in at. And I was in 84. I had more of the stat blocks. I rather in the thing as well as the box text. But the biggest thing I ever ran was Rapinathic. I got the fucking book here in my hands.
Mm-hmm.
I'm jumping to the end. Goddamn thing is a beast. I mean, what am I? 650 plus pages, right? And hundreds of rooms, hundreds and hundreds of monsters. And I'm looking at a lot of these. Not one has a descriptive text at the beginning, and most of them are pretty damn long. Like, I remember running. I'm like, I had to, hey, let me read this for a minute. Just talk amongst yourselves for a minute, because it's like, page here, another that goes to the next page. Shit. 2/3 of a page. And I'm like, and it's small text too. That's one thing. God damn it. We're all getting old, motherfuckers. Bigger font size. All right. I mean, but I'm but I'm looking at this stuff, and there were rooms where I had to pause. There were notes like to the DM, but there was never really. Some rooms had stat blocks. Rather, some rooms had the box text, like 1C7 suffocated room, a few lines or whatever, but most of them do not. I appreciated the text because, like I said, once I was done reading it, the players could dissect it. I'd read through ahead, figure out, because you don't memorize a whole massive module, right? You might know 5-10 rooms ahead, but that's about it. They go off in the wrong direction, and then you figure out what you want to do. How you're gonna do it, and by that point, the players figure out what they want to do too. So, I don't know.
Yeah, the art of writing terse description is something that has to be practiced. I mean, it's something that just doesn't come intuitively. I mean, you can think, if you like how I describe stuff in Scourge or on a few things I posted on my blog, you can thank Tim for beating it into me to write tersely. Back in the early 2000s, we had our private, we have our own writing seminars, and I would write up something, and he would look at it and say, "You don't need to say this. Is this important to what you're trying to describe here? Is this important?" And all of a sudden, this like 3-paragraph, half a page thing that I wrote is cut down to 1 paragraph. Yet it still said everything that was important to say about the area.
Well, Condor DM makes a point. Overwhelm players with description, and they start missing the important details in many cases. Sensory overload. And remember, we're talking about stuff, and when you're describing stuff, you're describing sights, sounds, smells, and the people aren't experiencing it. You're asking them to experience something in their head for an imaginary character that they're playing, and the more stuff you throw on them, the less likely they're going to be able to retain any of it. So that's a valid point, and I think
it's true.
It up too.
And plus, people look for different things. I remember this is one of the very few times I actually spoke to Rob Kuntz on the phone, and I remember telling him about these different things. What we're talking about now, actually, it came up about the descriptions, and I said I appreciate that, and I like it because for another reason. You're running this guy's module that say Rob wrote or Gary wrote, right? I like the stat at the beginning, the little text at the beginning, because it gives you the ability to play it in the way that the author played it, or you're speaking with his voice. You're sort of in touch with the style of play that the author had out there. You can always change it if you want, but there's no better way, I think, to have the voice of the author, not just the style, but the actual voice of the author, than to read the text blocks as they've said it. Now, if it was Gygaxian language and it was, at least 30% longer than it needed to be with the flowery descriptions you had to look up in a dictionary, but it was still fun,
Yeah, see, I don't agree with that. I mean, what I try to do is teach you how I did it at the beginning, and I have a chapter devoted to that in Scourge of the Demon Wolf. I'm not saying it's volume of this, what I said, but in that chapter, I'll lay it out. I lay out how I ran it, what I experienced, and because trying to reading a text box out aloud, it comes off, in my experience, very stilted.
Yep.
And you just can't memorize it to make it seem like a natural description. And it's just too many of them. When you get beyond 16 pages, there's just too many of these boxes for you to ever get natural at it, and it's not reasonable to expect the DM to read them all beforehand and practice them.
And it stops the rhythm of the session. When it's like they're playing, it's like, oh, okay, you enter a room, there is an ogre on the far end. Hold on. He is sitting on a throne. He says to you, you all are, well, I want to say something. No, I got to finish reading this text first. Then, because come on, guys, I got like 2 paragraphs here. Let me finish, and then you can react. That's not how you want to play a game, but that's how we often did back in the early days, because it was run as written. This is what you're supposed to do, right? They wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't the way you were supposed to do it.
Yeah.
And they didn't know what they were doing back then. So, and that's the honest God truth.
Well, actually, it was written for a specific. It was written that way for a specific person.
It was written for conventions.
Yes, it was written for tournaments and convention, and they were making an honest attempt of being fair. So, and that specific circumstances, read aloud texts, standardized stat blocks right then and there. All that makes sense because you want to try to have. I mean, you really want the DM to run it the way the convention organizer intended to be run, because everybody's trying to compete to each other for the prize. So you have to be fair. But with the home campaign, I think the point of selling a product for a home campaign is to save you work, Joe.
Yeah.
Not to run it like me, to save you work in running an adventure.
But that to me, saving me work is that text. I thought I still, if it's done well, like my brother's saying in there, sometimes they have way too much information. They focus on bullshit, like the little things, instead of, oh yeah, you read the whole thing and then they finish, but there's 4 ogres in the corner. Like, fuck, why don't you say that first? I'm focused on the chalice. You know what I mean? And then I guess but yeah, so some of them are written really stupidly, and that doesn't save you work. But the ones that are well written, if they could lay out what's going on in the room in a good way to bring a sense of a good atmosphere to it, I like it. I think it does save me work. And like I say, once they're digesting that, I'm skimming ahead the rest of the shit, refreshing my memory on it. So it gives the DM a little, 5 seconds of thinking time. So to me, it's perfect. It really is a perfect setup. It's strange. I'm totally in a minority here. I'm curious about how the rest of the audience feels. And type what you think. Do you like the text in the beginning if it's well done, or do you think it's stupid? It shouldn't be there.
Well, here's the issue. You keep on saying if it's well done. And
if it's well done, yeah.
Let's be honest. Most of the times, it was not well done. And most of the times, that's where it's going to fall short. So I would rather see, personally for me, highlights in the margins. So like, room 2 has all this going on. And in the margin, it says, this 20 by 30 room has 2 exits on the far end. Real short. It's like inside are 3 imps. Boom.
Yeah.
They will be aggressive. And then you figure the rest is, what do you need for the players when they step into that room? What do they need to know? But if you're reading this whole description, and then there's a chalice and there's a circular carpet approximately 8 feet in diameter with a pentagram in the middle with blood stains on it. Are they taking that time when they're entering a room to study the carpet to see if there are old blood stains on it? So why are we doing that
that's a poorly done one.
But that's the way most of them were.
I know.
Even now, when and I'm not saying that people are doing something. Oh yeah. I'm saying people are doing something wrong when they do that. If you're going to do box text, it should be something and that you're going to read aloud. 2 to 3 sentences most.
Agreed.
If you got to go beyond 2 to 3 sentences, you're not reading text. You're dictating. Yeah. And the last thing I want as a player is to have the game master, the DM, dictating to me what's going on, because it takes my ability to interact away, and it makes it, oh, okay, I'm just here to listen to Tenkar talk about the adventure. Mm-hmm. All right, well, when I get the roll dice, I'll roll some dice, and then I can listen to Tenkar tell me more about this adventure. And nobody wants that.
Yeah. At the same time, there is this, like what Tim is saying here. I don't think there's one solution. Different types of adventures need different ways to provide details. That's true, because sometimes
Sure.
by describing stuff in the room, you're giving the players things to play with within the room, within the context of the encounter. Oh, there's 3 barrels, or there's a metal urn. I'm going to pick it up and swing it and try to hit the guy in the head with it because, right? And so things like that, you have, if there's some level of description, like I said, it's got to be pithy, it's got to be quick, it's got to be easy, it's got to be something that players can grasp upon looking in. And ideally, it should contain, this for my brother specifically, the size of the goddamn room. Get how many times I'm like 3 sentences deep in some description. And he goes, well, what are the dimensions of the room? I'm like, shut up! I'm not there yet. It doesn't matter right now.
But it does, because practically you need to know. And
you do.
So I'm looking at page 25 of my Scourge of the Demon Wolf, and it describes the wolf cave. So 1A, satchel case. So, basically amid the pile of the debris near the table walk is a satchel designed to hold Kodak. And I go to great length to describe the satchel, not because I in love with my own writing, because that's an important plot point, because the players will see this satchel. It has a mage's sigil on it. Mm-hmm. And when they take that satchel with them and they visit the mage, they'll notice the mage where one mage has a similar satchel to the one they found here at the Table Rock. So that's why I go into description about this satchel, because it's going to be an important connection that it's going to be an important clue. Then the wolf den.
I just shared that with you, Eric. You could do my share screen there, and this is what Rob is talking about. If you want to screw.
Now with the wolf den, I kind of take like the newspaper article approach. I tell you, it's a wolf den. The entrance is for the verbal DMs. I figure I should describe the dimension verbally. So it's a 3x3 opening and goes in 10 feet. And then, I describe what's inside of it. There's mummified, remains. There are teeth marks on the remains. It's obvious that the teeth mark and the way the remains are, that they met a violent end. And of course, in every goddamn session I ran of this thing, they always ask how old it was. So, the party can estimate to be, I give that piece of information. And then I also make note that, make a note about the brush that's on the map. And because that's not terribly important, I just say 2 things about it. It's brush with game trails. I don't describe what the brush looks like, whether it's heather or thorny bush or whatever. It's just brush, make it up. And then I also note that later in an encounter, if it's in a possible encounter that could happen here, in another encounter that happened here, that will be the location of where the demon wolf appears. Mm-hmm. So each of those 3 descriptions focuses on things that I felt, not just I felt are important, that turned out important in the half a dozen times I play tested this adventure.
Now, Rob, when your characters entered the room, each of these rooms, each time, have you ever, many times you play tested it, did you come up with a standard, okay, you walk in the room and you see blah, 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 blah? Was there a couple sentences that you threw out to them that you noticed that was, I'm saying this a lot? Maybe I could put this in a box text at the beginning of the encounter room?
I guess the only thing missing in that regard is when the player said you see a 3x3 opening at the base of the Table Rock. And then the players look at it, they said you smell that something was long dead in here, a musty age.
Yeah.
Smell of death.
See, that's the perfect 2-sentence description then. You know what I mean? That's what I would say. Of all this stuff is the explanatory stuff that comes after the description, essentially. You know what I mean? And like my brother was saying, you don't put the details of the treasure and every other damn thing in the room, but you may want to put stuff in there that helps give the players they can use tactically, right?
Right.
Something like that would be good. The problem then is players start to think everything you say is either tactical or so they're like, oh, I could throw that pencil.
Well, why can't I trust the buyer of the? I mean, I assume the buyer of this module is going to be referee with some experience behind them.
Why? The first time I bought my shit, I was 14 years old. I didn't know a goddamn thing. Thank God for these box sets. It helped teach me how to do things, I thought. You know
Well,
what I mean?
based on emails and comments on my blog, I get the sense that people, when they buy, if I had to throw a dart, I would say the average experience of a person who bought my stuff is
Mm-hmm.
has at least 2 or 3 years if they at least within the OSR
Well,
itself.
and
They may have played somewhere else. They may play a third edition prior,
yeah.
but I rarely uh, met a true novice. And if
And
I'm
that,
gonna write a product for a novice, I would,
mhm.
like Tim said, I would take a completely different approach. I would be laser focused on taking somebody who knows nothing about RPG
Yeah.
and walking through how to run an adventure.
Which goes that brings us completely full circle where we started. Do you write an OSR thing for a 5e? Is it worth it? Is it worth the money? Is it worth the reformatting and relaying it out? Is it worth having to do things like put in box text because a ton of new 5e players are brand damn new and or they don't have a lot of experience and so they need the extra help? How much does a conversion of, say this, Rob, to 5e, what would it entail? What would you have to do certain things to dumb it down, essentially make it simpler, make it more new DM friendly, right? There you go. I mean, that's full circle.
I don't know
I
how,
mean,
yeah, it's not easy, I don't think, because doesn't that change the whole? You're basically writing a new product if you're going to have to rewrite it from the assumption that you're going to have experienced players to, I got to now write this in a new system for inexperienced players. It's no longer a conversion.
Does that make that big of a difference, you think?
I would think so, Rob. Well, you're the one that would be doing it. What do you think?
I think I'm going to assume that if it's not a product geared toward uh, novices, you just assume that your reader knows what the hell to do.
I'd have to
In a general sense.
Yeah, yeah.
They won't know what to do as far as the module. That's what I got to teach them. See, when I wrote this, my mindset, I'm going to teach you what I learned writing this adventure, and then I'm going to try to the best of my ability to make an excellent reference for you to use at the table while you are running the adventure.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to trust that you know how to role play a medieval peasant. I'm going to trust that you can know how to role play an arrogant mage, and, or more specifically, I will trust that you know how to play an arrogant mage with one or two specific personality traits that I outlined.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, the village priest, he's obviously a fanatic. He hates the Goshawks, who are part of a culture known as beggars, and he believes that they ought to be wiped off the face of the earth. And when the players, meet him, if they mention that there happen to be beggars outside the town, they'll see him literally go into a frothing rant. And I describe all that in the adventure because that's an important point about the NPC. But everything about a village piece, I leave up to the referee. I figure they can handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a different approach. I mean, their 5e stuff it's not all written for new players and new DMs, obviously, but I think we could all agree it's kind of it doesn't make those assumptions often. It's a more, you lay it out in front of them step by step, piece by piece.
Well,
actually, no. Have you read like Saltmarsh or? There are a few like that, but most of the 5e adventure books, like Tyranny of Dragons and stuff like that, they're so sprawling.
Well, it's sprawling and railroady all at the same time, though. That's what I mean by laying it out in front of you. In terms of the style of play, the thing is, it even puts it in chapters. I mean, the whole Tyranny of Dragons thing, chapter 1, chapter 2, and you're gaining a level per chapter, and it's like, okay, nice railroad, buddy. There's no free forming it within the adventure structure, basically. The only free forming it you're doing is, you could say that they're going to take on the personality of the village priest, but that stuff in those adventures isn't as important. It's the bigger stuff that's going on.
I agree that Wizards doesn't do enough, except for Fandelver. I don't think they have really done a good job explaining that within the books themselves. But for me, when I read most of these books, I see where the gaps are. I mean, I feel bad for the person who believes they got to run this book. They start at the chapter, they end of the chapter, and there's nothing that happens in between chapters other than the fact that the characters get leveled up for the next chapter. I feel bad if that's what they think and how it's meant to be run, because it doesn't. I could see how they would think that, but also on the other hand, Wizards does put in that notes about opportunities for other adventures at the DM. They say like this point is a good point to insert in an adventure.
Yeah, but who does? As a bigger population, I mean, look at how much just with us three, we all started different times, different places with different things, and look how much it's shaped what we expect D&D things to look like just within this conversation. Now, if you get a 5e guy and they're coming in, this story is everything. It's laid out in fucking chapters like a novel, and you have certain assumptions that are made that this is going to happen and nobody's ever going to die, and you're at the end, after 12 sessions, you get to 100th level and you rule the world. This is what they're expecting now from all things, because that's where they started, right? That's the problem. Is that
well, here's the thing. Now that I think about it, you remember playing with Josh in our Tuesday group, right?
Yeah.
Well, I know him from live action role playing, and there's a group of friends that we have that's from live action role playing, and before the game fell apart early this summer, we role played regularly together on Saturdays.
Okay.
And these guys are like, I wouldn't say they're like the youngest of the 5e players. I mean, the youngest of like 5e players who are in college and no, they're like a generation just before them.
Yeah.
But they adopted 5e, and I can tell you equivocally, I played in several campaigns, and 3 referees that ran these campaigns, they all inserted adventures in between. They did not start the campaign with beginning at the chapter, end of the chapter. Okay, you level up. Let's begin the chapter. No, when the book had an obvious gap in it, they filled it up to fill up those missing levels.
That's good.
That's missing adventure, and that happened. Enough that the only problem is I haven't, played with many other referees outside of this group. But you know what? I'll put $1 on it. If you took a random sample, they're all doing. The majority of them are doing that. It will be a bell curve. Most of them. The outlier. There's not going to be an outlier where they say everything is a suggestion. They run 5e their own freaking way. I'm like that.
I think it's far less to do it like that, Rob. I swear. What do you think, Eric? I think most people, when they start off, they're going to follow what the book says.
I think that listen, the 3 of us are at least rooted in old school gaming.
Yeah.
And when I got into old school gaming, nobody called it house rules. We didn't call it like, oh, you were hacking something new. But we would right away. You were already changing stuff to make it work, because AD&D played by the book didn't play very well, so you hacked it.
Yeah.
But my experience with the 5e players that I've experienced gaming with, there is a large percentage of them that it's got to be in the book or it doesn't exist.
That's what I've come across in all the games convention stores. Yeah, that's it. They don't break the book. They don't break the world of the book.
If you're talking about character abilities, yeah, they are pretty much now the group I played with. Yeah, they comb Unearthed Arcana, the Talshas and Xanathar and the DMG and the Player's Handbook for feats and abilities, and yeah, they worked it, and they didn't really like when I ran my Majestic Fantasy for this group. They didn't really like the. They didn't really like the fact that there were only a handful of mechanical abilities, and that everything else was like, notes on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And which is fine. I mean, I like fiddling this stuff with GURPS. I understand the mentality. I appreciate it, but what we're talking about is the flow of adventure. That's
what I'm saying. But
thing.
that expectation, Rob, that the shit in the book is the shit in the book, and you shall not deviate from it, overflows into adventures. I've had people sit down on when I used to run game store games in 5e when I was learning and playing it, and I hit 5e with a brutal scalpel, started chopping up, cutting and pasting, whatever, and I house ruled it from the very beginning because I knew what I knew what I wouldn't like, I knew what I didn't like, and I've had people come to the table and they come once and they would never come again because the expectation that their characters have such and such, can do such and such, and this thing works in this way, in this combo, in this build, and yada, yada, yada. It means nothing if you start changing around expectations of what they're going to encounter and face and have to deal with. Right? Because then the careful build that they make to min-max every goddamn thing under the sun, you're throwing shit that's not in the rules, and they're having a heart attack because you can't do that. I made my guy so I could do blah, 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 and you changed blah, blah, blah. Well, motherfucker, I'm the DM. Shut up. And this is the thing.
Were you running organized play?
No. Fuck no. No. We were just
so
regular
you just
shit.
Showed up with it. Well,
with 5e, and they expected organized play, Rob. They expect organized play thing. That's the style they're looking for.
Only at game stores.
Yeah. Well, that's my experience of the 5e players has been. I eventually set up my own campaign with people who stuck around in game stores, and again, it wasn't organized play, but so many people in a game store are expecting a DM to run everything organized play style. And that store was +3 in the adventure. How come it's +2 now? Fuck you.
I run stuff in game stores too. They're not representative. I'm sorry to say, they are not representative. Most 5e run games at home. It's been true for every edition.
Yeah.
The mentality that's different than old school is not how they run adventure. The difference is that they are like what you see GURPS players do, what you see Hero System players do, what you see, Rollmaster systems characters do. They will work the system as far as their character goes.
Yeah.
But the adventurers are a mixed bag like anything. But when you go to game stores, organized play players expect the adventurers to be a certain way.
But that bleeds over, Rob. Even the home campaign. What were you going to say, Eric? You're trying to get in there.
Condor DM has a comment I think is apropos. 5e gives them all the answers and doesn't force them to think for themselves. That is why those players follow the book. Because that's how Condor DM sees it. My experience, remember, I've never run 5e, but I've run Swords and Wizardry Light for 5e players who are expecting 5e. And some players could make that adjustment, and some people could not make the adjustment because there's got to be a rule for everything. I want to see if that person is lying. What do I need to roll? Dude, if you think they're lying, tell me why you think they're lying. Yeah, they could be lying, certainly. But there's no role for it. What do you mean there's no role for it? There's got to be a role for everything. Literally being told that. And it's like the different mindset, and that will carry over to the adventures. Now, if you're playing 5e with old school gamers with different expectations from an RPG, because the way they were raised in gaming, I could play 5e with the two of you and Tim and Greg, and it'll play probably a lot like 1e.
It is. That's how Rob's running a 5e game, and it feels like playing like that.
Those are the expectations that we are coming into it with. But if you came in on 5e, your expectations on how 5e is going to be run and how the adventures are going to be run are different from our default and from the people that we would naturally socialize with, as opposed to the percentage of gamers that you're going to deal with in a game store or at a convention who a lot of times 5e was their first gaming experience, and therefore it's a rule for everything. There's no DM interpretation, there's no DM fiat and DM ruling and all this other stuff. It's a lot less freewheeling now. Is that a more balanced play for Adventures League? Definitely. I'm not going to even argue that point. But that expectation carries over, I am quite sure, to home games that aren't run and played in by people that we have a sample of here. Again,
That just haven't been my experience. In my years of playing 5G, I met 2 players that would fit the profile you're describing, and only one of them was in a campaign I was actually running. One of them was at a convention. I played Adventures in Middle-earth, which is a 5e Avarice. So I had some of the, and a player came, and he was a dickwad. I can't put it any more blunt. Criticized my management of the game. Tim had to tell him to shut the fuck up. And,
I would have paid to see that.
Well, and it didn't help matters with the player that with the help of Tim, I slaughtered the party because
nice.
Tim was a ringer. He played an agent of Sauron, and the party didn't catch on until it was too late. And so anyway, not to get deep into that story, but the other player is perhaps more instructive, but that player's problem is that he came from video games. Okay, he was a video game programmer. He developed video games, or he worked as the staff of one of the big video game companies. So that's the baggage he brought in the game, and the blow up happened when I was running Dungeons of the Mad Mage, and he was playing a rogue, and he wanted to stealth across the room, and there was no cover. There was the NPC was in the door on the other side of the room, looking into the room, covering his compatriots who were fighting the party. This character got separated, so was trying to sneak back. And first of all, he violated a clear rule at the table. It says describe first, roll, and I'll tell you what to roll second.
Yeah.
So he rolled a stealth roll, rolled either a 19 or not 20, I think. Did I sneak around and backstab? No, that's not happened. There's no place for cover. You cannot hide it. You cannot sneak across an open room like that. Just to say, he had an epic meltdown at the likes that I only see a few times in my life, and he quit my game. So,
well,
I mean, but that was the only player out of 2 dozen.
All right. Well, Willis brings up the point, says that he feels that what we're seeing is a lot of newer gamers are lifelong video game players where there are hard set rules that are coded into the thing and makes it black and white.
Yeah.
They can do this and cannot do that. And in the opinion of Willis, they struggle with the idea of being able to do anything. Well, that's the ability to do anything that's not defined. Now, I do have seen that, especially in the time frame of when World of Warcraft was everywhere, and when you were watching it on South Park as they were playing World of Warcraft, that you were getting players that were coming to tabletop role-playing games with similar expectations. And I think we've seen a little bleed over into what we're getting as the, not crunch, not the rules themselves, but how the rules are presented, or the fluff, or some extra details, because of that influx. And I'm not saying it's a bad influx; it's bringing players into gaming. And whereas
they were in the 70s.
Yeah, well,
I mean, if you were a high schooler like I was in the late 70s, learning D&D, half the players were real rules lickers. I mean, that's the whole era where the whole rules lawyer came about. Because, let's face it, role-playing games were utterly new. And even though they had a few years under the belt at this point, for the greater population of the country, nobody had heard of role-playing until the steam tunnel incident. And so what were you taught when growing up? That when you play a game, you play by the rules or you're cheated.
Yeah.
So every era I see, that mentality arrives in the game, in video. And
I was that way. I probably wouldn't be a lawyer today if I was such a fucking rules lawyer. I mean, the wish spell, the terminology and language around the wish spell, I'd agonize over for days because I know my brother would fuck me over with it and I'd fuck him over with it. So we had to outwit each other in the wish spell. There was always loopholes and angles. I'm convinced it's all there.
My experience was different because I would spend my summers and a lot of the weekends in the Poconos. I had a gaming group up there. Had the gaming group in New York, and both groups ran 1E differently. They
Really?
were different because 1E, you just, for the most part, again, my experience, if I talk to a lot of players and start with 1E, and it's like, oh yeah, well, the first thing we did, they got rid of weapon speed, and who used the weapons versus AC adjustment, and other little house rules,
Yeah.
and both groups ran it differently. So, to me, AD&D was not a consistent set of rules. I just had to adjust my expectations depending on, am I playing in the Poconos or am I playing in New York with my high school buddies?
Well, this
Oh
difference.
yeah, I remember. I remember that. Yeah, when I went to college,
Yeah.
I had to explain a lot of shit to the first college group I ran.
You know, so I never saw consistency. AD&D was supposed to be the consistent rule set that would stop the house ruling that was going on with Basic, Expert, and the White Box. And really, all it did was give a lot of rules that were not compatible with the rest of the rules in the set. It's like, yeah, let's just not use psionics. Let's not use any unarmed combat because it is literally unplayable as
As
written.
written, you can't. But
So
that's funny because Eric, what you're talking about, two different groups. Back then, don't forget how much isolation there was. Our only point of common contact was what we read in Dragon magazines, some letters or things people talked about. Who nobody really went to conventions. Who could afford them, right? I wasn't going to Gen Con at age 18, or whatever, 16, right? So you didn't do the convention scene. You had probably your circle of people you played with, because let's face it, there weren't that many of us fucking nerds. And once you found each other, you all played together, right? And so you had your circle. Eric, you were different because you traveled. You had two different geographic circles, right? And so you got to see that. I didn't know what I was doing right or wrong. I was kind of doing it the way the kids at school showed me, and I was kind of using that example, and I didn't know anything better. And Dragon magazine didn't seem to challenge it. No other people that I didn't play with anybody else to know what a difference was. So there it was. Now what people get is they get this rule set which lays out parameters for everything. And so it takes away the players' ability to think outside the box. And if they're trying to learn how to do it, what are they first thing they do? They put on fucking Critical Role or Critical Hit, whatever the hell it's called, on YouTube, and they watch an episode that 8 million other people have watched. And so everybody starts playing the same and they're expecting their games to be the same.
Well, I would agree that Critical Role is a factor.
Yeah. Yeah, because it fills in the gaps, right? If you have questions that we had, we kind of made it up and hoped it was right. And if it wasn't that, whatever. But here, if you got gaps or you have questions, you're going to watch the idiots from Critical Role, and there you go. It's pasteurized, homogenized vitamin D fucking D&D, and that's what you're dealing with.
But just keep in mind, when it comes to 5e player, the first adventure for 5e is a sandbox adventure.
I love it. They did a good thing with Phandalin. The Lost Mines of Phandelver is the best starter adventure I've ever read in any system ever. I think so.
That's high praise coming from Joe, because Joe will tear apart most anything. So
try.
Joe say that's really good.
And I think if you combine Phandelver with the D&D Essentials, Dragon of Icefire,
agreed.
It's like a epic.
It's amazing. They should have combined them together. They should put them both together. It's as easily. It's like a half an hour of an intern. That's how easy it would be to put them together in one fucking publication, and then it's done. It's a great thing. It's a great thing.
But as far as 5e, my secret sauce for dealing with the whole issue is that it's first person role playing. And the whole insisting describe first, roll second. Because that really gets the players in the mindset of thinking what they can do as their characters, opposed is what the rules allow them to do. And it's the thing it is not really taught. It hasn't been really taught in nearly all the D&D editions. Most D&D editions are focused on the nuts and bolts of using the rules.
Yeah. I mean, that's how they make more money, selling rule books. Vizawiki? How do you say that? Vizawiki?
Zwiki? I would go Zwiki. Zwiki.
That's a good comment.
My interactions with the 5e community led me to believe there is very little respect for DM agency.
Yeah, agreed.
And that, again, is if your expectation is it's going to conform to the rules and there's a rule for everything, you are, by my opinion, and Rob will correct me, I'm sure, if I'm wrong, you take away a lot of the DM's ability to react and improvise if it's not going to conform to the rules.
Well, it's not so much you're wrong, Eric. It's that
I was setting
you have
myself
speaking as a GURPS
myself up,
GM.
Rob. Come on, I did you that.
No. It's not what you think it is. It's not what you think it is. See, the thing is that with 5e, 4e, and 3e, and GURPS, okay, I'm throwing GURPS into there. You have such a large toolkit, okay, that if you want to do something as a DM, there's usually a rule that covers it. So you're not really scrambling in the way you are with, say, Swords and Wizardry or the 3 little brown booklet. I mean, there you have to, the only resource is how you define your setting, okay? So you have to extrapolate from that into a series of D6, D12s, or D20 rolls, and when your player comes up with crazy. But with the games that I mentioned, they have enough details in there. There's a rule that generally a rule to cover what you want to do.
And Rob, I'm going to take you then one step further, because what if you're going to run a game like 5e, Rollmaster, GURPS, you need as a DM to be highly skilled with the rules, more so than being a storyteller.
Oh yeah.
Or more so than being somebody that can write adventures. You have to be. You're not just presenting a situation. You have to know the rules inside and out because your players are going to expect that of you. Almost like you are the computer program in the background. Whereas if you're playing Swords and Wizardry, Old School Essentials, or one of these rule sets, knowing enough of the rules to keep the flow going, your players will trust you enough, generally speaking, that you don't need to know every bell and whistle to keep it going, because you can generally guess close enough how something's going to work if you know the general rules as a DM. But I mean, 5e, I will never run 5e, even if I start playing it as a player and go, wow, it's a great system, because I don't have enough time in my life to invest in learning it well enough to do the system the justice that it's going to expect it. That's to me, that's the problem when you have a rule that can cover pretty much everything, is that as a DM or a game master, you have to be experienced enough with those rules that you're not going to stop at the table, open up the book and go, all right, hold on a second. You want to shoot into moving combat from a boat against a sailing all right, hold on a second. Let me what's the wind knowledge? Okay, let me look. No, players don't want that. But if they do want you to know the rules so you don't have to look it up, I will never know that for 5e.
Well, I mean, it depends. Here's where a well-designed system works. Now, GURPS is not perfect by any means, but most of that stuff, once I learned the general principles of work, yes, I still, did the die because I forgot how something worked. And of course, Tim, come on, type the favorite line you like always to say to me.
Where is it, Tim?
You know you want to do it, Tim. So you're still watching this, but I'll say it anyway. Make it up, Rob. He'll say, make it up, Rob. And yeah, and I make it. I would make something wrong, and I wouldn't be too far off the mark.
Yeah.
Because GURPS is well designed. Now with when I ran D&D 4e a couple times, it's saving virtually that everything you needed was in that stat block.
Yeah.
And the basic system that the stuff you had to memorize was exceedingly simple. That was not the case with 3e. And 5e kind of sits at a halfway point.
It does.
And it's when it comes to world building, when you're doing something out the game, the prep for the game, then you kind of got to know where your stuff, know where to find it, especially if you stray out of the stuff in the basic rules, like the warlock. If you take some of the archetypes like the battle master for fighter instead of a champion, then you got to do exactly what you said, Eric. If you don't if you haven't mastered the rules, it's going to be a mess.
Or you do what I do, and you just hack away at it with a motherfucking chainsaw until it's something left resembles the game you actually like to play. I call 5e good enough D&D as long as I can get agreement on some basic house rules, and there are house rules I will never get agreement on that I've written. But I wrote them all down on my dream sheet. I call it Joe the Lawyer's Hardcore House Rules. Only a couple people have seen this. I think it's called Hardcore Brutal House Rules that nobody will ever play. So, but it's there someday if I find the ideal group.
Well, I found it easier to start with something more straightforward, like Swords and Wizardry Core, and added the stuff I wanted.
Well, I would rather do that too, but it's hard to get.
You got players that want to play 5e. Like
5e, yeah.
Myth Arthur is a great hack of the 5e rules that, honest to God, I read it and I was like, wow, this is a version of 5e that I could probably learn well enough to run it and not feel like I'd have to take a break every 10 minutes to look up a rule, which was surprising to me to find a game that uses the 5e engine yet brings it back to the point where somebody who is no longer has that ability to be literate in the game system pulled off the shelf in a day or two, which I could do back in my high school and college days. I no longer have that ability. I no longer have the
time. I don't even take shits long enough to read the DM guide.
Back in high school and college, I could. Oh, new game. Bought it at the complete. Well, give me until next week, and I will be running this game with minimal rules referral because it's okay. I got it, and I'll run off the combat in my head, a few dice, and I'm good.
Just as an example.
Wait a minute. Did you master Dragon Quest?
No, Dragon Quest I could not master. Dragon Quest I got, and I was like, I traded Hunter in high school. The West End Games board game. I traded Hunter for Dragon Quest because I'd always heard about Dragon Quest. And then I got Dragon Quest and I started looking at it and went, holy shit, this feels like a war game. I went, oh my God, section 1.2.4. Oh, my head.
Like a statue.
I still own it. I never read it. Sorry.
Well, which version you have? The hardback second edition or the?
No, I have the paperback, which I guess is the early TSR edition.
Yeah, the box set, the combat system was even more hairy.
Yeah, listen. There were a lot of systems that I gave up on. Aftermath was one of them.
I successfully made an Aftermath character.
All right,
but I did make a character. A friend had it.
I had a friend go to me, God rest his soul, Paul. We lost him on 9/11, but he goes to me and goes, listen, you're very good at learning these game systems, right? I'm like, yeah, because I've had this for a number of years. I want to play it, but I can't make shit out of it. Can you please look at it? So a week later, I went, yeah, Paul, do you want it back? Because I can't make head or tails. Because I don't want it back. You keep it.
How many hit locations Aftermath had?
Oh my God! Listen, it was ridiculously. So that was not going to happen. There were ones that you had to say, all right, I'm an English speaker and learning to speak Mandarin is just more complicated than I can ever do. And I have no skills with foreign languages, by the way, but I had skills with rule systems. I've lost that. I no longer have that.
Not even rule systems, man. Rob, you remember that book you recommended when I was talking in the Bronze Age, Between the Rivers by Harry Turtledove?
Yeah.
I started the book, 6 weeks ago? I finally finished the goddamn thing today. Only because I was home from work. I mean, it's like this is, and it's not that big a book, but it's like just the attention span is not like it used to be. But a great goddamn book, though, really, really good. Beyond the Rivers, Harry Turtledove.
Sorry to interrupt, Joe, but I sent you if you want to share that, I sent you the picture of the Aftermath hit location.
Yep. Hold on. I'm trying to get it up. Oh my God.
Too many puns from that one, Eric. That's going to be somebody please screen capture that and please just send it all over the place. That little 4-second sentence.
By the way, I love the crotch shot.
Nice.
Yeah. They had a crotch hit location.
Holy shit. You had all these individual hit locations, and I guess each one had an effect or something if you got hit there.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the gear you bought only covered certain hit locations. So if you bought like a band brace, it definitely you had to buy something to cover your elbow.
Yeah.
I'll dig out my character sheet. And
I'll tell you what, they're
see
talking
if
about
it's still
5e
legible.
core in the chat here. They're talking about 5e core. And I'll make it just hit me tonight as we were talking about this, that there is a part of 5e, the actual core of 5e, that is really, really good. And it starts getting worse as soon as the characters start leveling, because I think all the 5e complications and all the weirdnesses and all the other shit, it doesn't come from the basic core of the game. It comes from all the new characters' abilities and things they could do. Like if you stopped first of all, you take 5e, all right, this is like kind of the way my hardcore thing reads a little bit, but even more hardcore. If you take 5e and have the 4 classes, cleric, fighter, wizard, thief, right? That's it. Just those 4 classes, not the weird shit, the assassins, and not the battle master bullshit, just the big core. And you stop giving them anything for their class beyond like 3rd level, whatever they get at 3rd level is it. Then it runs like a really, really good game. It's a simple, basic game, and the complications never come in. You don't get the headaches, you don't get the bullshit. So the core system plus 3 levels of a character, you got a beautiful game. Just gives
you're describing my majestic fantasy game, honestly. Literally, you are. That's what I do. I mean, I take the stuff that Swords and Wizardry Cord has, and I add to it. I tweak the abilities. I have stuff like fighters get to add their hit bonus to initiative rolls. So fighter characters are generally winning initiative all the time. I have I call it an ability system because every character can use any of the abilities, but it really is a skill system.
Yeah.
And it's a D20 roll high. So, not to toot my own horn, if you want a 5e light, check out
you did it the other way. You came up, you added some things that would be abilities in other books or 5e in all the games you've ever played. You beefed up Swords and Wizardry, basically.
I just gave Eric a link to a partial copy of it that I released a while ago. So you want to share that, Eric?
And
Marcelo can download it for themselves.
Oh, cool!
Hold on.
Freebies in our show. Marcelo is asking Joe, "Isn't that just a low-level game?" No, Marcelo, I may have been unclear. What I mean is, if you read a 5e book, the shit that you get at 3rd level you can do this, at 5th level you do this, at 7th level you can do that. And that's just the base class. And then there's all if you are a champion at 5th level, you got this, and at 7th level, this, and 9th level, that. I mean, eliminate all that. You still get a hit bonus going up. You still get saving throws. You still get your skills going up, like, your basic skills. And you would still gain new spells. You just wouldn't have all the weird, crunchy things associated with your class. You know what I mean? Those things you still get spells, and you're still being a better character, things like that. But you're not getting the crunchy bullshit of each class.
So basically, each character class, at the end of the day, by the time you're like 12th to 16th level, you only have maybe 8 distinct abilities to keep track of. In some way less. Some maybe only have 3 or 4.
You're talking in your system. You're talking, Rob.
Or even D&D, many of the, like BX D&D, when you look at the character, the list of everything they can do by the time they're high level, it's a very, very short list.
Index card shit. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. At the end of the day, in 5e, if you scale back everything you give the characters, right, scale all that shit back to whatever you got at 3rd levels where you stop, and then you're still going to go up in hit points, ability score increases. You're not going to get any feats. You're still going to go up in your spell casting abilities and you'll attack bonuses, things like that. That's all you're going to get, and that's it. And at that point, you're not dealing with crunchy bullshit. And
things. Wait, hold on. Joey, check your text message.
I'm getting
Rob, where did you send the link? Because I can't find it. So is it Discord? I don't see it on Discord.
Oops, I sent it to my wife.
Oh.
She just chatted me a couple minutes ago. Now it is. It's below the crotch.
All right. There we go. Yeah. Now, all right. So, see
Sorry about that, Eric.
That's okay.
Oh, God. My brother already saved the clip, Eric. It's now going all over the internet.
All right. That
was what he said.
There you go. I put it up there, folks. It's in the chat. I'll actually add this to as a permanent comment when on the replay, so folks can find this. Because I think it's useful. And listen, what we're talking about with this reminds me a lot. Joe, you might not remember this because you might have been banned, But
Oh, was
over
that
on
banned from?
N-World, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they have something called like was it E6 or something like that for third edition, which was the idea that you just play third edition through the first 6 levels before the game started breaking down, and that there was some kind of I remember it. Again, I wasn't playing back in the day. I was in my no gaming.
Yeah. You
But I
were
was
lucky. You didn't miss much with 3rd, 3, 5, and Pathfinder. You just missed headaches, dude.
Oh yeah, I stopped gaming right after Skills and Powers came out for 2E, and I went, oh my god, this is gonna break my campaign, and my players are gonna want to use everything in these fucking books.
Yeah.
And then when I came back, I didn't even come back with D&D. I came back with the Warhammer 40K Dark Heresy, because if you're gonna come back to gaming, you might as well come back as a science fiction priest who believes in like killing everybody or some shit like that. It was pretty dark.
Wait a minute. Am I hearing correct? Joe, you're the originator of E6?
No.
No.
Okay.
No. I'm just saying. I remember Joe would have nothing. Joe probably doesn't even know about it because he was probably banned from Emerald at the time of E6.
So, yeah, it was Skills and Power. The first time I became aware of it, I was at a week-long LARP event, which we never did again. We instead limited ourselves to 3 days after that. A week was too long to play D&D in the woods. But there was a lot, there was a fair amount of downtime where different groups of the players would just chill out from the game. So I walked by one of the cabins, there was a picnic table, and it was loaded with D&D books. And there was like 3 people working on worksheets. Like, I recognized it was D&D 2E, and I said, what are you doing? They said, oh yeah, we're making our character. Well, why are you using a worksheet? And he said, he opened the book and it said D&D Skills and Power. And after they're done, I read it and I went, wow. Boy, they went into the deep dive on this.
Yep.
And then I made the offhand, if you're going to be doing this, you just might as well learn how to play GURPS. It's far more organized. When I read it in here, and you can literally be anything you want.
It's funny.
And the system won't break.
I actually bought all those books. We never owned. I don't know. My brother who knows these things are. I don't think next time you're over, I'll show you. But there was like essentially a 2.5, and it was a bunch of books. DM Guide. I'm looking over on the shelf at them right now. I got them. They're all in plastic. They're in good condition. I bought them over COVID, and they're like all kinds of upgrades and updates and this and that. And I don't know. I think that they included a lot of the shit from all those class handbooks, didn't they? Because the class handbooks came first, right? And then the
the complete books came first. I'll be honest with you, the Skills and Powers seem to me, in retrospect, to be, hey, let's play with some ideas for the next edition of D&D and get the current players to pay for our beta testing and feedback. And that's what it seemed like. Now, when it comes to the complete handbooks, we've got this. Ben Mike can tell you the story a lot better than me because I forget which person he talked to. That was an old-time TSR guy that was in charge of editing part of the line of the complete handbooks.
Yeah,
but pretty much there was no editing of the handbooks.
Really?
Get them out. There was no play testing.
Oh yeah.
Think of something that sounds cool and put it. So if you were a Blade Singer, which I had a Blade Singer in my group, if the class as a DM said like, wow, this class is really unbalanced, it was never play tested. So it wasn't just me saying this is bullshit. It was bullshit.
We did the little brown books for all the classes because we all, no matter what our favorite class was, you had to buy a brown book for that class, and I thought this stuff was interesting, but we never did like the squishy things like the new whatever called them back then, the subclass of whatever hell they called them back then. We didn't really play those that much. I never thought much of them, but if you're giving me new skills, a new like the Thief's Handbook was really good because you had these different tools that a thief could use to increase chances in various things. Made you feel like a ninja, so I kind of liked the Thief's Handbook,
Right.
But I was never sure how much of those books went into the 2.5 stuff. Like, did they pick and choose the best from the?
No, they're complete books.
No,
the complete books showed off the D&D second edition kit kit system. Kits were part of the core book.
Kits,
So
that's what it were. Yeah,
So that while they did have additional rules in the complete handbook, by and large, there were lists of kits. Skills and Power was kind of like those old Dragon magazine, occasionally in Dragon magazine, especially back when there was still AD&D 20, you had articles on how to build a class. And some articles were toolkits where you take a little something from column A, B, C, and D, and you got yourself a class in this associated experience point table. Well, the Skills and Powers was that idea taken to the next level, but it was, D&D, AD&D second edition wasn't really meant for that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that 3.5 or 3.0 did was take the intent of Skills and Power, make it a much simpler, much easier to use. And what came out was you could stack a level of a class in any class. You had feats, every so often. You had one level chart. All that was a refinement of the ideas that went into Skills and Power, although mechanically, I don't think it was a direct descendant.
Okay. I don't know if that's interesting.
John Miller's going to make me question my own memory, too.
Looking now.
Were kits mentioned at all in the core 2E rules?
I'm looking at the players.
I don't know. I bought the second edition CD, so I have the rule
book. My memory is that I don't believe kits were actually in the core. However,
I don't think so either.
Kits were kind of hinted at because the magic user class, you had to choose a specialty. And you had like choosing that spell. Wait, I don't know if maybe you didn't have to, but you chose specialty, you got an extra spell. Then you had a sphere of magic you could not use.
Yeah.
And I think that was the specialization that they went, hey, we could do this kind of for other classes and allow them to allow us to sell a lot of splat books, because the great thing about, from I guess TSR's point of view, is most rule books, except for the player's handbook, were really aimed at DMs. But these splat books were all aimed at players
to make more money.
You really increased your market when you started writing stuff for the players, and that was huge.
Yeah, there are no kits. I'm looking at the second edition book. I pulled it off the shelf. There are no kits, but you're right. They have the specialization wizards, and you were blocked from certain schools. Even the clerics don't have anything special as your cleric of this or that. But I think some of the books later on brought them out. Because I remember there was one book about the dwarves, and you had a priest of Clangeddon, the god of dwarves, and certain things that person had or whatever, and so that you would see things in the additional books, but I don't know that kits were around for core 2E. I don't see it.
The second edition books on the CD are Word documents, and I'm searching for kits and kit. I think you're right. I misremembered.
Yeah, I think our first view of kits was probably, I think the complete Fighter's Handbook was probably the first one. Although I think, Fighter, Magic User, Cleric, and Thief all came out around the same time. I know is that my gaming group got pretty much a full collection of that stuff.
Oh, that's right. Tell that story. I got to take a leak. That's an awesome story. Right. This is funny as shit. I'll be right back.
I was ordering like the complete Bard's Handbook because I had money. I had a gift certificate that I'd gotten at Gen Con for some tournament play. So I was like, let me use it and go to the mail order hobby shop and get a complete handbook and a poster. And like 3 weeks later, after I sent in my mail order, I get this huge box delivered to my house. And I open it up, and it's every complete player's handbook, like one of each. It was like at the time it was like 12 of them or something like that. I was like, holy crap! And I had most of them, but I was like, holy crap! But there was no poster. And then I thought about it and went, wait a second. There's no poster. This isn't probably my order. Okay, well, in any case, bring it upstairs, bring it in. A few days later, I come home from work, and there's a message on my answer machine. I couldn't tell you if it was Ernie or somebody. It was somebody. Apparently, you have received in error a box of material from the mail order hobby shop. You must return it to us immediately. And I was like, I'm not mailing shit at my own cost back to anybody. And my roommate was in law school at the time. And I was like, what do I do? He goes, well, if you don't actually answer the call and you don't actually speak to anybody, you got no obligation. It was sent to you without you asking for it, right? I'm like, yeah. You didn't sign for it, did you? I'm like, no, it was left on my doorstep. He goes, all right. So I must have gotten like 3 phone calls before they finally realized I was not going to return a phone call and I was not going to return stuff at my own cost. So I don't know. I guess somebody at the mail order hobby shop was docked for a screw up. And at the same time, I don't think the guy who got my poster instead of 12 books was going to send back a poster. He probably just said, "Send me my shit."
Yeah, where's my shit?
Yeah. Why should this cost me money? Again, I can only imagine now if you get like 12 books in the mail, what it would cost you to send that back?
Oh.
Jeez. So, yeah, no, that wasn't happening. But that's how my gaming group that's probably how Blade Singer got into my group because now.
Because of that. TSR fucked up the mail order room.
They ruined my campaign.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the complete Fighter's Handbook, the first one. Yeah, kits are presented out of the blue. You know, it's like its own substance, and basically you're allowed to take 1 kit for your character.
John Miller, the first place kits were published was in Dave Cook's Time of the Dragon box set, which detailed the other side of Krynn for Dragonlance. Huh. Interesting. See, folks, you never know what kind of little bits of gaming history we'll be able to screw up on our own and then have the audience correct us. But that's okay, because at least it wasn't Rob correcting me.
The more we smoke and drink, the more we're going to screw up. So as the night goes on, you will find more ways to correct us, guys.
I'm not.
Are you saying I'm going to be the one-eyed man in the Kingdom of Blind because I'm a teetotaler?
Yeah, you have a good shot there.
I did my drinking over lunch. I will admit that. But
you're coming down since.
Oh yeah, come on. I took like a 30-minute nap at like 6 o'clock. I'm like, all right, I ate.
Oh God. Somebody posted something that said everybody over 40, if they're out, if they're arriving somewhere at night after 8 o'clock, they have taken a nap, guaranteed. At some point during that day to be able to do that.
Definitely. Yeah, it's like, I might need to do a nappy, please. I try to get my naps in, or mid-afternoon, so it's not like, oh no, I napped at from 6 to 6:30. Now when I really want to go to sleep at 2 a.m., I'm like, oh well, my clock reset. I don't feel like I really need to sleep, even though I'm tired.
Napping is the weird thing. Napping here at home on my own time, I don't do it too often because I feel like it's a waste. But not saying I do it, but if I were to say nap at work once in a while, it seems like a very productive use of time because it would make the day go by a lot faster, right? And you're getting paid for it, so it doesn't really. It just seems like more productive than napping at home. It's like double benefit there. Not that saying I've ever done that. Ever.
Theoretically, if you could get paid to nap, yes, that would be a win-win.
Yep. Lunchtime. I'm not just saying.
I'm not saying that my first tour on day tours after working 6 to 2s in the morning. And went out that last night with my old partner, and we watched Monday Night Football till the end. And then I came home after some adult beverages and got to work the next morning. And the people I was with, there was a van of 4 cops. And within 5 minutes, they were like, yo, Eric, do us a favor. I go, what? Lay down in the back row seats and put your jacket over your head. and sleep. Why? Because you smell like a brewery. Because your body's still processing whatever you were drinking. Don't worry about it. If the sergeant's gonna check on us, we'll wake you up. In the meantime, cover yourself so we don't smell it, and nap it off. So, that was well over 20 years ago. The statute of limitations has long passed.
Oh, of course. And I just talked to the theoretical.
Oh no, I'm when you're younger and stupid. What do we do?
Hey, you know what I bought recently that I'm really enjoying? Oh, first, a couple things.
What?
I finally got Knock in the mail. They had some serious fucking postage, or not postage, shipping messes with Knock. I got one, and I bought two, and I bought one when I bought two. I didn't know one was out. I'm telling you, this is some interesting shit. It's about the size of old Reader's Digest magazines, right? Glossy print, funky ass format of everything. I'm enjoying looking at it. This is the best shit material I've ever had. This is like, because every article is a couple pages. Every article, it's like, I'll bring over to your house. I'll show you this stuff. This is the best shit material I've ever seen. It's all D&D related. Amazing.
Yeah, Knock is pretty good.
Yeah.
Knock, like knock knock.
Knock, yeah.
Knock, yeah. It's a magazine.
And not Knock as in the
Knock spell thing.
Knock spell, which I was nice enough to get something published in the last issue. So you could say that, yes, I killed Knock spell by published in it. But Knock is actually pretty good. It's an old school gaming zine.
Bric-a-brac, he calls it.
Yeah, but it's like it's thick, man.
It's thick. It's glossy. It's heavy. I mean, how many pages we talking? 226 pages. I mean, you pull off the cover and it's a map of this. I mean, it's really so well done. It's like amazing. I gotta say, this is one of the best things I've gotten in a long time. It's like a bunch of cool zines all congealed together, and all the various different formats and styles and structures and everything are all thrown in there. It's just like, this is cool shit, man. Really cool. I'm impressed.
If you are into old school gaming zines, Back to Basics from Throwy Games, they put out the hardcover. I brought it to the Poconos with me, but I wound up doing no reading whatsoever. But it takes like the first, 10, 12 zines and put them into one hardcover. Again, short articles, a bunch of interviews, a bunch of other fun stuff. Tom Wilson does a great job, so that's just a little throw out from Throwy Games. There you go.
Nice. Throwy Games, who runs ShireCon.
Yeah, ShireCon. Oh, and I've already announced this on a standalone episode, but I'll announce this again. If you were hoping to see Rach and I at Gamehole, we will not be at Gamehole. I actually canceled my flights for Rach and I. And our hotel reservation, we'll eat the con reservation. What it comes down to is, Rachel's legally blind. We've been trying to get an appointment with her with a vision specialist for low vision, and it's really hard to find and get. And literally last minute, they're like, "Hey, we have an opening," and it's the Friday of the con. And if we didn't take it, we were looking at 6 to 9 months, and got to take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
priorities, man. Cons are the bonus. Everything else is the priority,
Yeah. So, but Torchlight issue number 1 will be at Gamehole. Jeff Jones printed out a print run, professionally done, nice, great looking copies. Jeff will have them, and they should be at the Frog God table. I was told that Jeff can place them at the table, and the frogs will sell them. So,
when is 2 coming out?
2 will probably come out, I want to say end of the year, but right now, Towards with 3 Continual Light Digest Edition. We're waiting on some material that you'll all be happy to know is not by me. It's from somebody well known in the gaming industry. So we're waiting on that. Once that goes in, the game plan there is to also do a limited print run. The limited print run on Torchlight will likely get what the leftovers will probably come to me, and I will probably sell them and mail them out, which means that Rachel will be making lots of trips to the post office as I park in front of it. But and then once the limited print run is out, we do print on demand. But if you want collector's quality versions of Torchlight and Swords and Wizardry Continual Light, your chances will be coming up probably before the end of the year on Continual Light and for Torchlight Gamehole.
That's cool. So, that's cool. Yeah.
Well, congratulations, Eric, for finalizing Torchlight.
That was, I'll be honest with you, I mean, I would have been spinning my wheels in multiple directions if it wasn't for Jeff stepping up. And sometimes it isn't a lack of intent. It's a lack of being able to focus on the one thing. So Jeff came in and allowed me, or made me, depending on how you want to look at it, focus. And we got out Torchlight, the premiere issue, issue 0. And we got issue 1 out. And 1 being in print is going to be, it's in print now. I've seen photos. I'll have to wait until after the con to get the leftovers sent to me, but it looks fun and exciting to actually see it. It becomes real when you can hold stuff.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's. I was thinking if I ever publish something, I mean, the money's in PDF, right? Cheap. You just, it's instant. It's like mining cash. But there's a part of me that says, no, just do 100 copies in a print run, and that's it. If you do a zine or whatever you end up doing, put it out, 100. You signed, autograph, whatever the hell you want, but that's all there ever is all there ever going to be. You don't have the same, I don't know, lastingness and that you're on pirate servers all over the world forever. But at the same time, you got a certain thing in your hand here,
my opinion is I'll always put out a PDF, but the print runs, these initial print runs are always going to be limited. Marcelo, hardback of sort of we continue like digest size. I'm not sure if we're doing a hardback.
No, I think Eric,
or what?
He was talking about the other thing you were mentioning, the Shire Khan guy thing.
I think
that's
back to basics. Got to go to Throwy Games. I'll put it. Throwy Games.
I think that's what he was talking about.
If go to throwygames.com and he should have copies still available. He had Kickstarted. It's a beautiful piece. It really, and it's digest size. That's cool. I never realized how much I love digest size until I started getting all my zines in digest size.
Yeah. It's handy. It's good. Again, more material. It's good for the bathroom. It's like it's the old Reader's Digest size. This thing, at least this knock thing is, and it's about digest size. Almost. A little bit different, but this is perfect. This is perfect. Holds right, folds right, and it's interesting shit.
Yeah. Well, holy crap, Rob! You're like the best last moment guest.
I know. And at first, it was a dual guest thing. There was going to be Rob and Greg at the same time. And I'm like, this is good. We have a good show. And then Greg said, I can't do it. So, shit. So we had Rob.
Well, I hope I provided some interesting conversation.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah,
man.
Oh,
my God, Rob.
Yeah, this is good.
Awesome. And for folks that don't realize, I mean, it's funny. Having Rob and Joe on with me, I think if we had Tim on, these would be like 3 of the 5 initial blogs when I came back to gaming and found the OSR. These are the blogs that inspired me to start blogging. So
that was just ranting.
Yeah, JoetheLawyer's wondrous imaginings.
Yeah.
But this was good stuff, and really, I've had people complain that well, you don't do enough stuff on the blog side anymore, and it's like, well, you know what? Times change. My own ability to write as opposed to videos has changed. My ability to I still put up a blog post a day, but I don't have the capability to do 4 a day. And when you're doing content for different mediums, certain things just have a better flow and work better for you. And I think that YouTube has worked out well. And I'm very happy I found the medium. But I know it's not going to be right for everybody.
Well, speaking to somebody who's 50% deaf with I'm not too big of a fan, but I understand.
Yeah.
I would, if there was a program where I could literally just say, hey, I'm going to, for no cost, have transcripts done of all these episodes that I put out and then post them to a separate blog, I would be happy to do so. But the reality is there's nothing that does that for free that's going to be accurate. And I'm not spending the money that's actually, it is expensive as all shit.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, the YouTube transcript generator, I didn't trust it at first, so I spot checked it. It's good enough. So oftentimes, when I really just don't want to sit through somebody's 2-hour blog
Right.
presentation,
Right.
especially if there was reference in a forum chat, there's one specific point I'm looking for, I'll just use the Google Translate or the YouTube transcript, search for it, and then find out what the timestamp is, and that's what I'll watch. And sometimes, if it's one of your shorter ones, Eric, I will read the transcript, and if it sounds like gibberish, then I'll listen to that portion of the blog. But yeah, so I mean, it's there. If there's a ... next to videos, folks, and it will open up Google's best try at a textual transcript.
I never knew that.
Oh, I'd have to link to that for people because, again, I have found that in retirement, the free time that I thought I was going to have to do a lot of stuff is not my free time. That's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It means I'm literally not. My retirement wasn't like playing EverQuest and Anarchy online for 8 hours a day.
Well, look at Glenn Cook. He put out all those books back when he worked for GM or whatever the hell it was for 40 years. And then he retires. The guy who wrote The Black Company and a bunch of other stuff. He retired. He says, my production went way down. I used to have a whole regiment to go. He had a system where he could get all his 8 hours of work done in like an hour. Spent 7 hours writing all day or something like that. He goes, ever since I've been retired at home, I don't have a regimented system to do all this. And so he writes far less.
It's part of it. And I used to do a lot of my blog posting at work on my laptop. Oh, all right. Well, I'm on my 20-minute personal break. Put up a blog post. I'm on my lunch. Eat my lunch in 20 minutes and 40 minutes for a blog post. Get home, do another blog post. 3 blog posts, but only one was actually done on my time. But it changes. So.
And again, John Miller, good. Rob Connolly makes the best hex crawls in the business, starting with Points of Light from Goodman Games. And he also says, check out Rob's Judges Guild, Wilderlands, and the CSIO, City State, the Invincible Overlord, and all his maps if you haven't already. And this is good because I agree, absolutely. He's makes the amazing maps, knows everything about Judges Guild, and puts out awesome shit.
Appreciate the compliment. And I do have some minor news in that regard. So it's looking like towards the end of 2022, maybe like January 2023 or February is when what the fees will accumulate to where Bob Bledsoe II owes me will be satisfied, and that's when I'll take it off.
So what Rob is talking about, guys, I think we talked about it once before with him here, is that he got a license, I believe. That was a quick summary. He got a license to put stuff out there or whatever, and he did it, and he was owed money by Bledsoe. And then we had the whole Bledsoe situation. And so Rob is putting in enough sales to get himself paid what he is personally owed by Bledsoe, and then he's done. He will not be able to buy this shit anymore. It's essentially a license until he gets a certain amount of money, and that's coming up. So
to be clear, you have a year to do it. So that's the way it's looking now. You don't feel left out.
But if it runs out sooner, it might run out sooner is the problem, right? And so, like, if once you get paid, you're done. You get paid.
Well, here's the kicker. It's a 10%. I owe the royalty rate is 10%.
Yeah.
So to get what I'm owed took a lot of sales over a long period of time, and he forgave my royalties in 2018. So it's been 4 years before it's even approached.
That being said, I mean, you don't ever know when it's going to end, right?
No,
you could be coming closer, you're coming closer.
Right.
So you're going to get paid off at some point, and the audience, you're not going to know when the hell that's coming up. His stuff is priced really good. I have everything that you can buy, and it's good shit, man. It really is good stuff. And so buy it now. Rob, where do you sell at? Where can you
Drive Through RPG.
All right,
I'll dig up the link to the storefront. Okay. And also, guys, if you buy one of the iBooks, make sure you order the PDF, because in the files for the PDF, it's the master map, and it's 5 foot by 8 foot if you figure out a way to print it. And I have known of 4 people who have done it so far.
Probably Staples, I guess, right?
Yeah, banner printing. you know, you can get and it's not some low resolution. We're talking the full map.
Oh yeah.
All combined, no hex numbers though, because it doesn't, you know, they overlap. So
Yeah.
but the full map you can print it out as a full 5-foot wide, 8-foot high map with all 18 maps combined.
That's awesome.
Well, here's the other thing too. There's currently a sale going on at Drive-Thru RPG. It ranges from 20 to 40% off. It's on the PDFs, but it's a small publisher sale. So Rob's stuff might be on sale. My stuff is on sale.
Yeah, I don't do sales.
No,
okay.
All right. Never mind.
I'll do
full price, motherfucker. Full price.
No, hold on. As you'll notice, my prices are generally lower.
Yeah,
they are. They really are.
So
yeah.
I'm gonna be all defensive about this. I think I set a fair price. And,
yes, Rob, you do. Honest to God, Rob.
I was surprised. I was
print and PDF are very fairly priced. And yes, Willis, Anarchy Online. I know it's a rare statement. I haven't played Anarchy until I migrated over to Macs as my PCs. But I used to get a lot of time. You could do a lot of soloing in that MMO. So it was an interesting game to play. And Tim, no sale for you.
No sale for you, the soup Nazi.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff, man. Good stuff.
I can't think of a better way to end it than Tim saying, "No sale for you." Really,
no sale for you. Folks, if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe, like, comment after the live stream, because your live comments help us, but your comments after the live stream help the algorithm, and the algorithm gets this channel seen.
And any money you tip in goes to good cause, guys.
Right. Well, right now the good cause is if you tip in, here's the deal. We're going to be doing sponsorships. Sponsorship money is going to be going directly to two things: North Texas RPG Con, because they run at a loss, or the Doug Ray Memorial Fund, where we basically going to be taking care of the old school old timers, and when they have medical bills or other things where their budgets fall short. Something that Doug used to help these people out with. We're trying to set up a fund that will do such. So the advertising or sponsorship, a regular short episode, where I'm just me as a talking head, is going to be $10, and you'll get your blurb. I'll talk about you. I'll link you. These live streams are $25. I think that I think Talking Crit on Wednesdays is already booked.
Nice.
So we have to get a PayPal address so the money can go directly, because I don't even want to touch it. I want that money to go out directly. But money for the advertising here right now, if you're watching ads or you're putting money in, the next project we're doing to help this cast is to buy Bad Mike a fucking wireless headset, because this fucking wired headset is killing me, and it's annoying the shit out of me when he fucking mutes himself by mistake. So we're going to upgrade. Okay, and then we got others. We want to make sure. Well, listen, this is public broadcasting, or not even public broadcasting. This is cable, that public access cable show. But we're trying to slowly make it a little bit more professional. So we're working on it behind the scenes. And
doesn't Glenn need a mic too, a better mic or something like that?
Listen,
on Fridays.
We took care of, thanks to my son never picking up a laptop from 2 years ago, never even opening up the box.
A new computer now,
Glenn has a new laptop, so again, these are things behind the scenes that we learned that Glenn's problem isn't so much. It is a problem with his own computer, but it's his bandwidth that's killing him. The video is killing. We learned it in Discord last night, but his video looked awesome when it wasn't going. But this is the stuff that the advertising is going to help. So
start laughing at Gothridge Manor's comment there.
What is do you think a wireless mic is going to help Bad Mike?
Eric, I think you need to go to Dragon Quest and check section 3.114.6.
Okay. Do I have to write that down, Rob, or is this just a rabbit hole you're sending me down?
I don't know. If you haven't played enough SPI games, then I guess you'll have to write it down.
All right, hold on a second. 3 point.
No, just don't write it down. I just made that shit.
Oh, I wasn't sure. It sounded legit enough. I was like, oh my God.
God, Oklahoma.
we're
He
just
lives in
using my
Oklahoma.
referee skill for it. Make a joke.
That was good. It was a good one though. Yes, Oklahoma, David.
That explains it.
We listen. I don't think we're going to earn enough money to move Glenn out of Oklahoma. So we got to bring the rest
Bring
of
civilization to Oklahoma.
Civilization to Oklahoma.
Update them from the
So trust us. We're going to work on it. Listen, we're going to tell you right now. I believe everybody in this live stream has taken the COVID shots.
I'm getting a booster in about a week. I am able to get a booster this Sunday. Would be my 6 months, but I got to do work for my parents on Monday out in the yard, cement, blah blah blah. I don't want to be sore and sick, so I'm putting it off a week. But I'm getting my booster.
Folks, get your COVID booster shot if you're eligible. You can get COVID despite being vaccinated,
right? And listen,
which happened to me.
Yeah.
Right. Listen, we are not medical experts. We are not medical professionals. We're not even medical amateurs. All right. What I am going to tell you, I tell you pretty much every time we do a video, use your common sense. If you wouldn't throw a fireball into a 10x10 room after you fucking did, but my character would have common sense not to do it, use your common sense to keep yourself, your family, your friends, your loved ones healthy and safe. If you're sick and because of your own choices, you can't help others. All right. You can't keep others healthy if you yourself aren't healthy. So listen. Not gonna tell you what to do,
but I will say the best way to succeed at a disease saving throw is not to have to make the saving throw in the first place.
Ooh, that's pretty zen.
I would say you know what that comes into the era of common sense. But be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice. Thanks again to Rob.
Yes, Rob.
I would thank Joe, but come on, he's on every other week, so we're natural. We're not like brothers like him and his brother, but we're close enough. I can abuse him.
It flows.
God, that's something he should have a video clip of now too. But Joe going, it flows, folks. Thank you much. I will catch you tomorrow. Gamers Health, 8 p.m. Eastern. My niece Shannon, I think, will be joining Rach and I, and we're going to be talking about ways to relieve stress, including from the perspective of a young lady that's going to be turning 11. So she's got some ideas that she wants to share. She's excited. I'm excited. So join us.
That's cool. All right, guys. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks again, Rob.
You're welcome. Thanks.